But the mills and other value-added companies still need some supply of wood, and some of it is leaving our shores untouched. One of the most controversial subjects is the export of raw logs. Though logs can no longer be exported from public lands in the Northwest, about 25% of the logs from private lands are exported in raw form. Critics claim these logs should go to local mills to save jobs. But the private companies that export logs do so because their overseas customers can pay a higher price than the American mills. This brings up the subject of how value is assigned to the products we extract from the forest. Ed Whitelaw.
When a timber company comes into a forest, it pays in dollars for some labor, maybe the trees, some of the logs, and for some of the machinery, but does not pay for a number of the other very critical elements of the forest. For example, the degradation in water quality, forcing a municipality to pay higher rates because they now have to filter their water, whereas before they didn't, or not having to reimburse commercial fishermen and recreational fishermen for the depletion of salmon. And a subsidy exists whenever the price of timber or the price of the lumber from the timber is not high enough to cover those very real, very pervasive costs. And unless society forces us for me to pay a higher price and for you to have to incur higher costs to produce whatever it is I want, until society does that, you and I are going to be wasteful. And we're going to be wasteful in a way that harms others.
One way to be less wasteful is to recycle. At Weyerhaeuser's newsprint facility in Longview, Washington, they recycle enough to use every paper read daily in Washington, Oregon, and Idaho. Since they don't get every paper, they have to go as far as Chicago to supply their mill. Transportation raises the price, making recycled paper less competitive. So if we recycle more and consume less, we can go a long way to reducing pressures on the forest. If the cost of the resource reflects the real cost of extracting that resource from the environment, we will have a greater incentive to do both. The goal is to achieve sustainability of economy and ecology. But people differ on what sustainability means.
Even if we were to limit artificially the notion of sustainability to timber alone, there clearly is disagreement over whether the forests in the Northwest are sustainable in perpetuity on that basis alone. When the average age of the stands at harvest and the diameters of the trees at harvest decline over time, there's at least the suspicion that we're not sustaining the resource. More important, though, than getting into the debates of, well, geez, can we sustain it with high-yield timber forestry and so on? More important is, what are we talking about when we're talking about sustainability? Is it sustainability of some lumber company? Is it sustainability of tubifores off the forest? Or is it sustainability of all the services, all the valuable characteristics or attributes of the forest?